Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. Gonna do another Marillion album today, although I'm not sure I'm gonna do them every day. I might just do it Mondays. I was thinking Marillion Monday. That way I'm not so tied down on just doing them, but so I can do some other things in the process. But anyway, random number generator pulled up the number that would be selected for 1998's Radiation, which this is actually the 2013 remaster. But I guess I did, as I alluded to in the previous videos, I did pull up my Case Logic book that has a lot of my Marillion CDs in it. Not all of them, but, you know, back in the day, you know, back in the 2000s when I was using these things. So there's my copy of Radiation right there. And, you know, a lot of people like to keep CDs in the jewel cases. I didn't, unfortunately. I kind of paid for it. But anyway, so we're talking about Radiation. This was, I guess, in effect, I think, because they were on EMI, and then with Afraid of Sunlight in 95, and I think 97's This Strange Engine was the first album they finally were not on EMI. I think that's how it worked. I'm not sure. You know, I actually just look at that to see which label going to Discogs. Just as far as the perspective of when this album came out. I mean, there's more to it that I'll get into just in a minute here. No, this is Velvel and Eagle Rock. This is independently released. So, I can't remember if This Strange Engine was on EMI. Anyway, this was kind of a combination of, so an independent release, and it came on the heels of This Strange Engine. Well, the weird thing was, and that was not that long after, but I was still becoming pretty obsessed with Marillion in the late 90s. They had put out This Strange Engine. I'll talk more about that in that video, but that was in 97. 98 was the year after, and I, as a fan, I definitely was not... In fact, this came out, and I don't even think I knew when it came out. I think I probably ended up listening to it for the first time. Might not have been until 99 or late 98. I don't remember. I guess I was going to look up the release dates. It kind of just, you know, it was one of those albums that came out when I didn't know about it. Now, part of it was, you know, we didn't have the internet, and we weren't paying attention to album releases religiously back then. I wasn't able to. We got it from magazines and record stores and maybe the radio stations, but they didn't talk about Marillion on the radio here in Minnesota. It came out September 21st, so anyway, I guess I could just quickly look up. Yeah, because it wasn't on EMI. They were on the major label EMI for a long time, like going back to when they first started, and I think this might have been the first album or the second album. Let's see. This Strange Engine came out... Was that on No. So it was the second album. Anyway, the whole point was it felt like it was almost Rush. In a way, it felt like it was a rushed album, and I had really enjoyed This Strange Engine, although that was my initial kind of excitement as a band having their first... That was really, in effect, the first new album they released after becoming a fan. And I kind of felt like after hearing this record, it wasn't as good as This Strange Engine, and it felt rushed. Like, it almost felt in some ways described as like This Strange Engine B-sides. However, I'm not going to start comparing them exactly, but I do not feel that way about this album at all now. I really like this album. In fact, this might be the most recent album that's grown on me the most among their whole catalog of 17 albums or whatever. So, but yeah, so this is the remaster from 2013. And in fact, this is I had this in my car for a while. I know it's taken a little bit of a beating, but it's kind of an electronic album at times. I mean, it's very experimental, and I know a lot of fans like Holidays in Eden, the last album that I talked about yesterday. A lot of people didn't care for it, you know, or a lot of people weren't as crazy about it, but I think also a lot of people, like me, it grew on. But this is just the 2000 Deluxe 2 CD edition, the top 40 album, newly remixed and remastered by Michael Hunter, who's been working with them the last couple, like 15 years, 20 years, at least since Marbles, maybe even since Ranorak. The new artwork plus the original '98 mix by Steve. So that's what this really is this is both versions. This doesn't include like a lot of bonus stuff, I don't think. Because I haven't listened. I remember I listened to this initially when I got it back in 2013 or whenever that was. But so my highlights. Here's the track list. My favorites on this record. It's actually probably easier for me to tell the songs I'm not as thrilled about. The two kind of, I don't call them skippable tracks, but not the ballads. Now She'll Never Know and Born to Run. I was just listening to Now She'll Never Know again. That almost reminds me of two tracks. One being U2's One, and then also you hear Living in Fear, or is it the beginning of El Dorado when H is going, F everyone and run. It's a similar kind of slight, just, gradual, light, gentle vocal passage. But besides those two, and the little Costa del Slow, or Slough, Costa del Slough, that's like an intro piece. But Under the Sun, The Answer Machine, 3 Minute Boy, These Change, Cathedral Wall, and A Few Words for the Dead. All of them are really good. And among those, my favorite would definitely be the closing track, A Few Words for the Dead, which Marillion has a great history with a lot of bands I love, with great, excellent, moving closing tracks. That has that Middle Eastern element. I mean, it's a slow build. It's like a slow burn, but it's so worth the payoff you get, where it gets building and layered and layered. And some of the lyrics on it, where he goes, "You could love." I always think of the part where "You could love," but where was it? "You could love." Yeah, lie down in the flowers in the blue of the air. Open your eyes. Why use up your life for anything else? No need to fight for what everyone has. What do you need? It's already there. It's already there. You could love. Kind of reminds me of The Message and The Shaming of the Truth from Kevin Gilbert, actually. You all know the answer. You're not listening. Love is the way back home. But yeah, that Middle Eastern, and then the kind of the part that the climax where it gets really layered, the guitar riff. It's just this wall of sound, it's like an uplifting happiness. But I would also say, so These Chains has always been a favorite. In fact, not soon after I got this album, whenever that was, so that was September 98, early 99. I remember when I was working at my previous employer from the one I'm at now, which I've been at there for 17 years now, but These Chains was like the one go-to. In fact, I may have played that on KFAI in 99 or 2000, early on my time there. It also, I think, was used for like a commercial. I always think of like a coffee commercial, but These Chains, like the story, the narrative reminds me of like someone who's kind of contemplating or being very kind of analytical on a relationship, maybe like 4 in the morning, that line 4 in the morning. I have to read through the lyrics in here. I don't know, it reminds me of like sort of a coffee commercial relationship, but it also These Chains being like the ball and chain in a relationship, but also like maybe a guy who may have screwed up and he's just kind of trying to figure out what to do. The dawn was breaking, a new day was rising, shadows creeping over the fields. He watched the pink light steal across he realized he saw with new eyes. It's just the string section is very Beatles-like, which another song on this album, 3 Minute Boy, is very Beatles-like in such a good way. Although the one thing about this album, Radiation, it fits in a sense because it uses a lot of technology. Kind of like Radiohead, as much as I'm not a Radiohead fan. This is on the heels of OK Computer coming out, so I think there's to deny this album, the album after it, there was a Radiohead influence would be false. There definitely was. The Answer Machine's another track. Again, that's product of that time. Everyone was using the Answer Machines in the 90s. And Under the Sun lyrically sounds like they're talking about like getting cancer from sun rays and stuff like that. So it's very environmental. So this is kind of, a product of the time, but I don't think it's dated per se. It sounds really good today. Now, maybe because I'm listening to the remaster. But yeah, the Radiation, it's overlooked. I mean, by me, by a lot of fans, I think. I know a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people probably have grown to like it more. There's probably people out there that just discovered Marillion that love it. but it just has a lot of experiments that worked. Is it a perfect record? No, but you'll see where it falls in whenever I finish this series. This is the fourth one out of 17 or 18. Yeah, I really like this record, and I would say it's as good, if not better, than some of the records that it came around. So, yeah, I mean, A Few Words for the Dead is epic. I remember also hearing that live, again, at one of those Marillion weekend recordings I was able to hear, along with like the suite from Holiday Is Need, and it was one of the most requested songs. It's just great. Cathedral Wall is a weird song also. I've grown to like a little bit. I'm on the fence. It's good. It has a moment though in it. The lyrics, "Mother," toward the beginning, "A mother to the living, a mother to the dead, silent as the moonlight, I come to lay my head, and I won't know you anymore." For some reason, that phrasing and almost the lyrics themselves, but I don't think it is. I was looking at some of the lyrics. Remind me of a song from This Strange Engine, or maybe what it was is it was sort of mixed in the remixed album and The Positive Light, Marillion The Positive Light, which I have. And the thing about that record is it came out. It was basically a remix of This Strange Engine, but it's a really bizarre record that I'll maybe talk about later. Again, it's not like all original material. I don't know if it would go in the whole ranking, but in some ways it's unique. It Tales from the Engine Room, rather. But I don't know. It's like there's something about the phrasing in that part of Cathedral Wall that I keep on hearing references or echoing from some part of This Strange Engine. I don't know if it's Man of a Thousand Faces or one of the others. Maybe it's the melody. But maybe also thinking about Tales from the Engine Room, that remix album, because that came out in '98 too, but that came out before January of '98. So anyway, so Marillion fans out there, curious, what's your take on Radiation? Do you love it? Do you think it's one of your favorites? Is it one of the better '90s albums? I mean, most people are probably going to put it above like Afraid of Sunlight or Brave, but do you think it's overlooked? Have you grown to like it? Do you still kind of think it's one of their worst records? Because for a while there in the '90s, with this record and Holidays I did yesterday, Holidays in Eden, they were kind of bastard stepchild or something like that of the records around them. But I don't fully agree with that. At least they both really grown on me. In fact, given that every song isn't bad. The two ballads I kind of Now She'll Never Know and Born to Run. Not a reference to Bruce Springsteen, by the way, of course. But both of those are just kind of fine. They don't allow this to be like one of those statement records, but every other track is just, there's something to love about it. They're catchy, the textures, the experiments. Even though some of it sounds like you're in 1998, I sometimes want to feel like I'm going back to '98 when I listen to this. I feel like a simpler time was happening. And yeah, I think this record's held up, and in the canon of Marillion's catalog, it's a better record now than when it came out, it's a statement to actually the quality of the band, even though it felt like it was rushed. It was on the tails of the previous record, but sometimes that ends up being good, and actually the work ends up being better rather than overthinking and overanalyzing and overdoing things. So, but thank you for watching. Please give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.